fourth round of the 2023 official Motorsport Australia S5000 E-Series, driven by FRG, and a big thanks to Racecraft Simulations being on board as well. My name's Chris Mitchell. I'm your host tonight alongside Dave Roberts. We're getting set for a big round around Silverstone tonight, Dave.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just left here on the weekend.
Yeah. Something like that. We're set for a fantastic race. It's partly cloudy with a light wind and just 19 degrees, looking at this fantastic Grand Prix circuit, which if you had tuned in to the fantastic racing over the course of the weekend, you would be well familiar with. We're getting set for this one. The championship so far has been pretty red hot with a couple of different winners, and it's pretty tight in the top of the standings as we're running towards the final couple of minutes of qualifying. It looks like championship leader Damon Woods currently still on top by 1/10 of a second. He has a fair old margin over the rest of the field right now.
If 1/10 of a second is a fair old margin, it is in this field.
It was 1,000th of a second.
Yes, we were looking at it before, and there was 1/1000th of a second between Damon Woods and Tim Delisle. So they're fighting it at the front there for pole, and Julian Dunn sitting there in third place, and he's only 1/10 back from the pair of them. Greg Olsen there in fourth at the moment. He's 2/10 off pole. Josh Stewart 2/10 off pole. So the top five are really, really close. Then you drop back about 3/10, which is a mile in this field, it seems, back to Harris there in sixth place.
So this being the official S5000 E-Series, driven by FRG. It's not quite an S5000 vehicle, although the closest representation you can get within the iRacing platform. This is the Formula Renault 3.5, which is a real handful of a vehicle. I've driven it a couple of times. Dave, you've driven it a bit as well. A great car to get racing on, but very difficult to strangle the last few tenths out of.
Yeah, the car's a bit of a handful because it's got plenty of downforce and plenty of go, and it's actually surprisingly very, very similar in specification to the S5000. Has the same 6-speed gearbox. They both have a V8, although this is a smaller capacity V8, which revs higher. The Australian S5000 has a bigger capacity, which revs lower, and the Australian car puts out a bit more horsepower, but these guys have got a bit more downforce. But, you know, it's really not a lot of difference. Very, very, very similar cars, except that these, because they rev higher, sound a bit different as well.
Yeah, they certainly do, and they do have the opportunity to reduce the downforce and the drag on the rear end with an operational DRS system that allows them, what did you say? It was 8 opportunities throughout the course of the race to use the DRS at any point they like throughout the track.
Yep, so they've got 8 uses allowed, and when they turn it on, it stays on, I'm not sure, I think it's 30 seconds or something, or until they lift or brake. So if they lift the throttle or brake, it instantly turns it off. So
keep an eye out for that as we take a look at your starting grid here. Damon Woods takes the top qualifying time with a 1:41.590 to steal the pole for the championship leader. Championship number 2, Tim Delisle on the outside of the front row, 0.128 behind, and followed up by, you guessed it, championship number 3, Julian Dunn, just 1.5 of a second further behind from the pole.
Yeah, and then as we mentioned, Greg Olsen sitting there in fourth. He's only 2/10 of a second off pole. He's back on the back of the second row. Josh Stewart there in fifth, 0.028 behind Greg Olsen. The gaps between these cars are so small. That 0.2 of a second is not even the length of a vehicle. So Daniel Harris there, good showing in sixth place. And it'd be interesting to see if we have somebody else come out of the field last week, sitting there in eighth place last week with Andre Youssef. He finished second last week, so he's off eighth there. Keep an eye on him. He could do a similar thing again. And where's our winner from the week before? He's back on the grid somewhere there.
Park a little bit deeper in the field. I'm looking for where they might stack up as we take a look at the starting order further through the field. You see Bailey Evans down in 18th. Now, that's a name I would probably associate with someone who should be inside the top 10. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do from that far deep in the field as we continue to go further back. Marcus Knitzer with a pace syndicate entry down in 23rd. Names like Reese Margetts, who we know very well from the F3A Championship. He's back in the high 27s, along with Calvin Arthur and Anthony Marzot, with Lockie Capel bringing up the safety car at the rear as the revs get ready to come up and we get set. We can already see a rear wheel spinning from the box here. Damon Woods. It's a bit interesting.
Yes, we've been wondering whether that's actually happening or whether it's not. We think it's a graphical error from iRacing. It looks like Tim's got the run on the inside there into turn one beautifully, and Damon Wood just slotted right in behind him and he's going to challenge up. This looks like the opening lap of the Grand Prix with Verstappen attacking the McLaren. So we've got the same sort of thing here, and they're too wide back there for third place, which is Julian Dunn on the outside, and that looks like Josh Stewart getting by him, I think, and Josh has been really, really quick.
He's getting the elbows out very early here. The run down the Wellington Straight for the first time as Julian Dunn on the outside has a
big moment.
Breaks, and he's going to run off at Brooklands just past the BRDC stand here. This is the sprint race, only 15 minutes in duration, but an early opportunity going to waste there for Julian Dunn as he loses a ton of time. He rejoins in P10. Meanwhile, Tim Delisle out front and making his way away from the rest of the field. They're going to go through Cops for the first time, just slightly obscured by the grandstands there, and they come up towards Maggots and Beckett's for the first time. This is a great set of corners, hard to the left, then right, then back again a couple of times. Really trains you to be sharp as a tack on the steering responses, and waiting for the rear to skip around on cold tyres is especially a problem with these Formula Renault 3.5 or S5000 vehicles.
Julian Dunn's got a bit of a hoodoo in the sprint races so far. He's had a problem in almost every sprint race we've had, but he's managed to climb his way back through the field to be back on the top of the podium 2 out of 3 times, I think, in the series so far. But he set himself the challenge again tonight, so it'll be good to watch him come back through and see if he can do it again.
Well, more of that as we make the approach towards the halfway point in the series, this being round 4 of the official S5000 series for Motorsport Australia, driven by FRG. If he keeps making those kinds of mistakes in the sprint race, you can start to see those point standings really skip away from here as Daniel Harris in the fiercely forward entry. Love that livery as well. Love the yellow on that thing.
I call it my Lion King livery. It looks fantastic, doesn't it, Chris?
It is very nice. He's putting the pressure on Stewart right now and trying to look for that third spot. You can see tucked into the slipstream down the Wellington Straight towards Brooklands.
He's a little higher up than he normally is. He normally back a few spots and inside that top 10, around the top of the top 10. But here he is in the early stages here in 4th place, putting pressure on Josh Stewart for 3rd. So Daniel Harris having a great start to the evening.
As we can see, Julian Dunn on the defensive a little bit from Jason Sieg. As Jason looking to the outside down the old pit straight into Cop's corner. He's trying to make it stick all the way around the outside. A certain off track, but he actually made up the position using the rumble strip on the exit. And Dunn has to concede the position heading up towards Maggots and Beckett's.
And through here, there's a little bit of aero wash, so Julian will find it's a little hard to stay right in the toe. And there is that looks like Bradford's gone past Harris. Harris must have made a little mistake there on the back of Stewart when he was challenging for 3rd, and he's dropped a spot back to 5th.
Yeah, we missed that when we went on board with Julian Dunn and Sieg for a little bit here. Oh no, have they both collided or they spin by themselves? I looked away for just a moment, and Harris and Bradford both going down the order. A cheeky rejoin right in the middle of the pack as they come onto the Hamilton Straight, and that sees Harris dropping down. We'll check out the replay here as we watch this down into the final couple of corners and just trying to get on the power through the slow stuff, and they did tag. They did tag.
The back of him, yes.
So just on the way towards Club there, they did touch, unfortunately. It can be so easy to do if the driver in front of you is trying to be a little bit ginger on the throttle, maybe keeping in the back of their mind cold tyres, cold car, just be a little bit gentle. And if you're throttle stomping, well, that's the result you see, is what we saw a moment ago as we follow along with Daniel Edmonds in the simrigs.com DPR entry, trying to drive his way up through the field. He's up 3 spots, started 9th in this race, up to P6, and looking pretty tidy right now on the back of Greg Olsen.
Yeah, Greg's particularly quick in the 3.5, and we've seen Greg lead the race a few times already this season. So he's looking to get back up in front of this sort of second group and see if he can get a bit of clear track to set off for the lead group. But I think they've got a little far away already. They've really made a jump there. Couple of seconds. So Stewart's a couple of seconds off Woods, and then it's back nearly 6 seconds to Yusuf. So there's certainly a big gap developing.
Lost a massive margin they've already lost to stay in touch with the race leaders. Love the onboard shot on the top of the camera position on the T-bar on the very top of the intake. As you saw a little wobble there, that was right in the middle of it.
Oh,
and
Dunn's made another mistake, and he's clobbered the back of Caleb Hydes there, and mate, you know, race control will be looking at that. I think you might see some penalties coming through.
Let's watch this. Oh, Julian Dunn just went for the move very late in the piece and straight into the left rear of Caleb Hydes. It's undone Caleb's race, and I'm sure it's probably done a little bit of damage to Julian Dunn's car. Caleb has rejoined. Luckily, he might get away with not having any damage here as we check this out again.
Boy.
It's into the back of him. It wasn't even the left rear. That was into the gearbox.
I felt that.
Feel it in your bones.
It's hard with these cars. They're so quick and they're so late on the brakes. They've got so much grip that the braking distances are really short. And if you brake a little bit earlier or a little bit later, bang, you're straight in the back of them. And if you're really close, I wouldn't sit in the wheel tracks. I'd sit one out so that if I do have that sort of thing, at least I'm not going to run into the guy in front.
Well, there's a benefit to sitting out of the wheel tracks as well here to avoid the aero wash in the high-speed sections, especially coming up toward Cops here as we follow along with Nick Bradford coming out of the old straight and up towards Cops here. He's looking to the inside and trying to hold out that line. He's going to lose the spot, but he's going to tuck back in behind. And they were seeing a penalty for 20 seconds to Nick Bottrell for causing an incident on the first lap. So that's already being addressed by race control.
I think we'll see some more coming, Chris. I've got a nasty feeling that Julian Woods is going to be on the Dunn is going to be on the wrong end of one of those in very shortly. Bailey Evans has also copped a 20-second penalty for the same thing, causing an incident on that one.
Bailey copping it there. They're coming out pretty hard and fast with the angry stick tonight from the stewards' room. Lockie Capel, Rue Koister and Ty Ratcliffe presiding over the race, while you and I get to hang out in the broadcast studio and talk about race car. As look at
down the outside,
trying to do the round the outside move. He's
pulled it off.
Line to the left-hander as well. A brilliant move between Village and the loop.
What a beautiful of thinking before with that pass. That was just fantastic. Down the outside, claims the outside of the road, and then he's got the inside for the next. There you go. That was a beautiful piece of driving. Gave
him a country mile of room too, did Tim Delisle. He saw it coming and decided not to challenge the move. And better off when you have such a huge margin over the rest of the field. We go back to Nick Bradford, who's bouncing around the
three abreast
range as we go 3 wide into abreast.
The good thing is this track is wide enough that you can actually get away with it even in these large cars, Chris, and they were all very good giving each other room. Somebody off there on the outside. Looks like Chris Ireland has had a moment.
Chris Ireland getting caught up in the Simrees car. Let's check out the replay of that one again. What are we watching here? We're watching Chris Ireland just getting caught up, and what does he do?
He gets tagged
in the middle of the corner.
It's a little tag there.
Yep. Up in the middle of Nuffield. Now, who was that with? Don't tell me it was with Caleb Hydes.
I think it could have been. That's who I was thinking it was.
That pink and white entry of Caleb, who we just saw fall victim to Julian Dunn. As we see a bit more here, Damien Cairns, our mate from Accelerate Sim Racing, getting caught up. And almost a carbon copy, is it?
Oh, yep. He's done the same thing, but he's brought himself undone.
He brought himself turned around here as he finds himself facing the wrong direction at Luffield. We go back to the race lead. Damon Woods, the Door Esports entry. He was your last out winner in this championship from the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, Austria. Round 3. It was only a week ago, if your memory's still fresh about that one. The S5000 championship following as best they can and mimicking the F1 calendar.
Yeah, not every race is following the F1 calendar, but the significant events, there's a few of them where we've sort of put the... Oh, that's a beautiful move down the inside there. One either side.
Hyde's getting caught in that as well. He lost a spot out of that. It's unusual to see Caleb get pickpocketed so easily.
Yeah, and I see there's another 20-second penalty there, I think, for Edmonds that time. So, or was it Harris? I can't remember. Harris. So there's a few penalties being dished out here. There's quite a bit of biff and barge happening out there, Chris. Unusual, you know. But especially in the sprint race, because really, just take your time, boys. There's a whole race to go. You want to be on the front of the grid for the main.
Yeah, I don't think they listened to the pre-race briefing from Chief Steward Rue Koistra are telling him to keep a level head here. So the red mist has descended as we see, as expected, a 20-second penalty for Julian Dunn for causing that incident, faulting the rear of Caleb Hyde's vehicle on the way down in towards the club chicane. As we watch on board with Tim Delisle.
I'm not sure, but I think those 20-second penalties will be applied at the end of the feature race too.
Ooh,
because it's not a drive-through here, because you can't give everybody the penalty. So what they do is give nobody the penalty, and the penalty becomes attached to the end of the feature race. So that's a 20-second penalty at the end of the feature race.
That's going to hurt, definitely. There's no chance we'll see Julian on the podium unless he can pull something akin to the Messiah walking on water here at Silverstone, as we watch Tim Lyle just getting the back end out a little bit as he tries to get on the power coming out of the loop and village down the Wellington straight. I want to watch someone get the DRS open here. I haven't seen any of them yet as they come down towards Brooklands on the
very, very hard to pick. The DRS doesn't open. It actually, there's a little slot. See the little slot gap in the rear wing?
Yeah.
When they've got the DRS open, that actually closes. Don't ask me why.
Oh, so it stalls the rear wing out.
So it stalls the rear wing out,
Yeah.
yes.
If you're a fan of 90s...
If you look at this gap here, see the little gap that the director's so beautifully given us. When they press the DRS, that little gap, the little bottom wing comes up and closes that gap.
There we go. We're just hoping we'll time it perfectly to watch somebody use it, but no dice. There we go. There we see a little bit. It closes up there on the exit and coming onto the old main straight, and we should see that gap open up a little bit.
Yep, there
it goes. It's all flippers. So we see some DRS action from the S5000s. Big shout out to Luke.
That was pretty cool.
TV, hanging out well done, Luke. Giving us that. He picked it perfectly as well. He got it beautifully done. It does stall the rear wing out. So as akin to, if you're a fan of 90s Formula One, Michael Schumacher used to stick his head out the side of the cockpit in the Ferrari F1 cars, and everyone thought he just had a sore neck. He was actually using his helmet to stall the rear wing and gain a couple of k's an hour on the straights.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? I know they used to have the one which had the airflow down through the car, and they used to block it off with their hand.
Oh, the McLaren F-ducts. Those were the days. Those were the days. We don't see ingenuity quite like that anymore. At least we don't hear about it.
And the McLaren with the third brake pedal.
Yes. Yeah, that was found out well and truly after the fact as well, which was interesting as we watch Miguel Crespo currently inside the top 10. The Downforce Racing entry, Miguel having a solid run here. See where Crespo started out of to get to this spot. He's up 15 spots. That is play of the day right here. Starting out of position 25. He's keeping his nose clean in the sprint race, and he holds a top 10 result with 2 minutes to go. What a drive as we go back to the pointy end of the field with Damon Woods and Tim Delisle. They're still fighting it out over this, and Delisle's just hanging out in his wake right now.
You know, the thing is that there's not a lot of points on offer in the sprint race, so I think Tim's quite happy to sit there. He'd much rather be in front, but he'd rather sit there than be in a situation where he's got a bent car or he's taken a penalty. So, he's just sizing up where he may be able to get past Damon, but Damon's got a pretty sharp head on him, and it'd be interesting to see. The last couple of laps, I'll be saving up their DRS. And using them on that last sort of lap to try and put a pass on that last lap. There's no other. They only need to be in front on the last lap.
They absolutely do. I've been sent to minor correction. We've done a disservice to the series here. The 20-second penalties being applied are applied to the sprint race results. Now, for me, raises further questions, because does that then affect the starting position for the feature? Because just after this race, we're going to a 50-minute feature race, which is determined, the starting grid at least, by the results of the sprint race with 45 seconds left on
it. Oh, there's another one round. That looks like Rob Bowden, is it? Callan Arthur's round. So I think Callan's new to the series tonight. Here, what we've got is 40 qualified drivers and a reserve list which is fairly extensive. But we've had quite a few with injuries and work commitments and things. So if they're away for 3 or 4 weeks, they've sort of said, guys, I can't do it, and we've offered people on that reserve list a drive. So if you're involved in this, don't be too disheartened if you ever do one of these series and don't quite make it in on the first day, because people do drop out of the series. And Callum's joined the series tonight and he's putting a good opening showing on, except he won't be happy about that.
No, he'll be pretty disappointed with that one. I suppose in contrast to a lot of other series, there's a few differences here with this official Motorsport Australia Championship. We'll get to that soon as we ride on board with Damon Woods coming out of the final few corners, out of Stowe, down through Vale, past the pit entrance and into the final chicane before the run towards Club. As Damon Woods, the championship leader, he's been so strong in multiple championships, driven by FRG right now, runs it to the line and takes out the sprint race win. Tim Delisle across the line in second. Stewart coming home in third.
Nice.
Oh no, and more crashing further behind for the remaining placings. Edmonds caught up. That's going to allow Rob Bowden through for sixth. Oh man, that's going to hurt as Edmonds falls down the order. Crespo's going to pick up P9 here, and Harris is going to be the big loser as he limps home to finish 12th. He was running, I think it was 6th at the turn of the previous lap. That is a huge loss there for Harris.
And he's got a 20-second penalty on top of that. I think the 20-second penalty gets added to the result, but it doesn't affect the starting position.
Ooh, that's the painful one. He tagged the front end of the other car and then got tagged again coming across the right-hander, then got beached on the sausage curb on the exit of the final couple of corners on the run through Club. So you can see it's damaged the right rear suspension there on his car for Daniel Harris. That is adding a bit of salt to the wound there after that 20-second penalty. But how about it? Your sprint race winner, Damon Woods, the Door Esports entry, takes it out in pretty solid fashion. Delisle tucking in behind him for second and just hanging on to the end there. That is the sprint race mostly sorted out. I know there'll be some penalties to be applied here. Let's check out the final results, Dave. Damon Woods taking it out by 7/10 of a second over Tim Delisle in second. Josh Stewart coming home in third there with the Downforce Racing entry. Positive Sim Racing for Greg Olsen in fourth, and Andre Youssef taking out P5.
Yeah, Rob Bowden there in sixth for Tanked SRT, and Rob's had a good run there tonight. He's had a bit of bad luck on the way here. Drew Collins, nice showing by Drew, 75 Sim Sports. Daniel Edmonds there in the simrigs.com car, number 84, and he's there in 8th place, 21 seconds off the lead. 15 lap race or 15-minute race, 21 seconds off the lead. They've got to find some pace, these guys in the middle. Miguel Crespo there, another Downforce Racing guy, 23 seconds back in 9th. And Reese Margette's rounding out the top 10 for simrigs.com.
Reese made his way up. I think that was up 16 or 17 spots from where he started. I think I saw him on the starting grid in P27. As we look further back through the order, Julian Dunn showing 17th there. He started inside the top 5, and that is a massive fall from grace, as it is for Caleb Hines, another notable name there, back there in 21st. I'm going to drag in Damon Woods from the green room, who's patiently waiting for us here. We'll just slot him into our broadcast studio for a very quick chat. Damon Woods, congratulations. You take out the sprint race. Now you've got the big job ahead of you.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun race for me and Tim there. I enjoyed that one quite a lot. It was all about saving up the DRS at the end there to make sure that I had 3 uses across the main straights here. So yeah, it was a strategic one, that one, but it was good fun.
And I don't think the task is going to be as easy heading into the main feature race. 50 minutes, can you save DRS towards the end like that again?
Everyone will be, so it's not like there's going to be guys trying to use all of it at the start. Maybe the quicker guys, they're buried in the middle of it. But, it's going to come down to, having 2 or 3 at the end and then maybe using them in the first couple laps to try and break away if you can.
What about the old pit strategy? You're filled with a limited tank capacity here. It's an open setup category, but what is playing on your mind as far as when you're going to go to the pit lane in this race?
When she runs out is when I'm going to box.
That's a simple strategy. I like it.
Simple strategy.
Maybe a little before it runs out, Damon.
Oh, yeah. Ideally, the lap before it runs out, yes.
Well, I like it. You're keeping it simple, it seems. What's the strategy off the race start? Because you kind of got pipped off the start in this sprint. Is it similar strategy for this one?
I was just trying to be safe. I didn't want to wheel spin and, lose the front row. So I thought I'd play it smart and then, just go from there.
Well, congratulations and best of luck for the feature race. We'll let you jump on out of here with a little under 2 minutes left to go in the warm-up. We're watching on with a couple of drivers right now. Best of luck, mate.
Thank you very much.
As we watch on, Dave, with Caleb Hydes making his way out on the warm-up, I wanted to talk about the fashion in which this championship is run. It's not like a lot of other series where you can simply just enter any particular round through a pre-qualifying effort and make your way into the field. There was an entire pre-qualifying effort for the series held for this championship, and the grid is effectively locked, although you have your 40 with the reserve drivers as well.
Yeah, so what they did qualification, 2 qualification rounds across 2 different circuits, and then they combined the times, and the 40 fastest guys got a invitation to race, and then everyone who didn't make it goes into a queue based on their speed or in that qualification into a reserve list. And so as people drop out, and I think we've had 7 or 8 people join the series, which is quite a lot actually. But for instance, Luke Fitt, who's normally here, I mean, Luke's done his knee this week apparently, and he's he can walk around, but he can't do the rig because it aggravates his knee, so he's out for the season, unfortunately. And those sort of things happen, but it creates an opportunity for somebody else.
Sounds like he needs softer elastomers in the old brake pedal setup for that one. If he's done his knee,
I was thinking a handbrake myself.
Yeah. I mean, you could utilize so much stuff in jerry rigging. But the thoughts go out to Luke, who's unable to compete in the remainder of this series. That invites some other drivers who didn't quite make the cut to make their way into the series. I mean, there's no point putting on a championship and then watching your grids get further and further depleted as the rounds go on. So a great initiative to represent here for the official E-Series for 2023 for Motorsport Australia, the S5000 E-Series, thanks to Racecraft Simulations and driven by FRG. We're coming to the close of this warm-up, Dave. I'm getting excited for this starting grid.
Yes, it's going to be as per the results of the previous races, so it's a consecutive grid. So we'll see Damon Woods on the pole there from Tim Delisle, Josh Stewart and Greg Olsen. So, and looking back, what we will notice is those couple of guys that we talked about, like Julian Dunn, are well back on the grid now. They're going to be starting back in the field. There's Julian, 17th place. And another one, I did see there was Phil Vella, 19th. I mean, Phil's a lot faster than 19th. So there's some guys back in the pack here. Even Damien Cairns at 29th place. That's not where Damien normally starts. Bailey Evans, 22. So there's some people out of position. So we're going to watch for some chaos in the middle of the field.
I'm sure we're going to see it as the grid is set, the revs come up from Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. 50 minutes of racing on the cards here for the official Motorsport Australia S5000 E-Series for 2023, thanks to Racecraft Simulations and driven by FRG. We're waiting on those greens to send us racing, and we're looking at cars already starting from the pit lane as we get green lights and underway. Woods again losing out on the start here to the starting
this time.
He's going to drop all the way back to third. He's going to switch back and try and hold that inside line through the second portion of the opening lap here, as there was carnage unfolding further behind at turn 1. Woods goes to the outside and tries to pinch off the inside line from Stewart. Josh Stewart going back to third now, but look at the start from Tim Delisle.
He's off. He's not going to. He's hoping now that Damon and Josh and the boys behind him can get all caught up with each other and do a bit of racing and give him an opportunity to actually escape, and they'll lose the tow. That's what he's trying to do now. He's trying to put that distance in really, really quickly.
So Rob Bowden backwards there at Brooklands, I think it was, and getting shuffled back through the field as the field comes down the old main straight. Heading into Cops for the first time. The tyres are still going to be cold. The cars are very heavily laden with fuel as they make their way towards Maggots and Beckett's early on here in this race. There's a long way left to go, but the early gap to Tim Delisle out to 0.8 of a second as you see the rest of the field scrambling for every position they can through Maggots and Beckett's. Jacob Mayberry on screen, then back to Nick Bradford, Bailey Evans going down the order. He's back to 19th, and there's Paul Rogers backwards off the road at the exit of Chapel corner onto the hanger straight. He's going to go to the back of the bus and be watching in.
And Chris, I can tell you now, looking at the leaderboard, that Julian Dunn's already picked up 4 spots in that first lap and is up to 13th place already.
He's on the charge, isn't he? As we just catch him for a moment, we look back to the battle pack here with Jacob Haybury right in the thick of it here. The TGD Esports entry back to 16th. Jacob exactly where he started right now, so there's been a lot of movement all around him. He would have lost the spot to Julian Dunn and made up another one somewhere along the way. It can be so frantic in the starts of these races. The adrenaline's running high and you don't know what's happening. More carnage early on in the lap as we see a drive-through penalty for Caleb Hides. His night's going from bad to worse as there's still more carnage happening coming out of Village and the loop down the Wellington Straight. There's cars joining everywhere.
It's a bit like Burke Street on a Friday night, isn't it?
I'll make an equivalent to that to Beaufort Street here in Perth, Western Australia on a Thursday night or a Friday, as there was a good move there. Damien Cairns losing out of that one to Anthony Marzoka. Marzoka is a fantastic racer with his racecraft and how he thinks about where he places the car. I've had some amazing battles with him throughout the F3A Championship as Anthony moves up to 23rd on the road now, right behind Kalen Arthur, who we saw going...
I can tell you, Chris, Julian Dunn's got another 3, up 7, now in 10, into the top 10 already.
Julian on the move here as we go on board and inside the sim rig location for Damien Cairns, the Accelerate Sim Racing entry. Pack, stack, lock and store it. He's got a whole bunch of sponsors on board. Love the sim rig setup as well with the track racer seat, and that looks like a classic Sim Magic wheel. They're a good wheel as well, those Sim Magic setups.
And I'm very impressed. He's got a Formula wheel, not a V8 wheel on the rig now. So he's making some changes. But I think, and he's gone to paddle shift. He's not using the old V8 gear shift on the left-hand side, the wrong side of the cockpit he had before. So he's really getting into the feel of things here. So
would we say that he's fully converted now, do you think, to an open wheel?
I think so.
He's just about there. Damien Cairns, we've been watching him through, he's been in the F4 Championship as well, the official FIA F4 Motorsports Australia E-Series, as we ride on and watch Daniel Harris, the Fiercely Forward entry. I do love that livery. There's a good looking livery in iRacing. It's hard to make him look that good sometimes.
And it's not busy. It's not, it's not busy. It's not elaborate. It's pretty simple, but gee, it's very striking.
It reminds me of the old, the Newman yellow and white and black liveries.
Yes.
That rocked around. Well, they were on a bunch of Porsches, I think, back in the day.
They were. In fact, I think Ayrton Senna drove one of those at one stage.
Oh, there you go.
The 956 Newman Porsche.
It's your era, not mine, Dave.
Very much my era. Yeah. Unfortunately.
It was actually, I think it was a 962 or a 996. Some good-looking cars. As we go back to Damon Woods, back there in second, still looks to margin here to Tim Delisle, 1.5 seconds. I think Delisle has been really getting the elbows out and putting the car through its paces in this early stage, or he may have used the some of his allocation of the push to pass. Now, we don't get an allocation to see how many operations they do have from our live timing, so it's a little bit harder for us to tell how many DRS openings each of these drivers have used. We're just going to have to wait and see here.
Yes, just looking at the Marcus Konitska and the is it SWM car there. I love the liveries on that team. Beautiful, the red, blue and white. I caught them in the background. Here we are. The SWM look fantastic. Pace Syndicate liveries. There's 2 of them out there. Marcus and I can't think who's in the other one, but beautiful looking cars. And I love the way the guys are doing the team liveries. They've got a couple of cars out there running together, same livery on. Looks fantastic.
A lot of the time, the guys running the same team livery will be putting in the work during the week leading up to each of these rounds, put in the work on the setup, because this is an open setup championship, so the only restrictions being placed is on the starting fuel load. So setup can make a pretty significant difference to these cars, and if you work together with a team, you can find the sweet spot for the car, hopefully get a bit lucky with where you've picked it for maybe some of the track conditions that you might be facing, and get a car that feels really comfortable underneath you. So working with a team can pay some pretty big dividends. That's why I always like to fix setup series, because I can't set up a car to save my life.
Another update on Julian Dunn, up 9 places, now in 8th place.
He's on the move, Julian Dunn, after copying that.
And here he is.
22nd penalty.
He's about to be hunting down 7th right in front.
Yeah, right on the back of Harris as he has a little peekaboo up the inside.
He dives and Harris gives him room.
He gave him plenty of room on the inside of the corner, but now Harris has the inside line and chooses to push the middle pedal a little bit earlier and tuck in behind. So Julian Dunn now up 10 spots from his starting position. He's up to P7. Now, if we were to get a safety car at some point here, he would be a serious threat to the top 5. But as it stands right now, he is 3.8 seconds off the back of Daniel Edmonds a little bit further up the road, a total of almost 10 seconds off the back of the race lead. So Dunn on the recovery drive, trying to reclaim some points in the championship here to try and maintain his 3rd place standing where he was coming into the night.
Yeah, and if our director's listening, can we pop over and see Ben Holko? Now, Ben's one of the... He doesn't run a team, he runs a single car entry. And I want to give him a bit of airtime because he's always presenting the car beautifully and he's always running well. He's not always getting the coverage because he's just outside of the top 10, as he is again tonight. He's sitting there in 12th place. So Ben's beautiful helmet livery, matched the car. No chance racing. I think he's got a bit of a chance here. But great competitor, here every week, driving well and getting better and better as the series goes on. We're seeing him progressing. He was at the late teens early on, sort of 18th, 19th. Now he's moving up. He's cracking the top 10. I reckon I'm going to put some money on Ben for a top 6 tonight.
He'll do well if he can dispatch a Scott Bartain, who's right in front of him as they come down the hanger straight up towards Stowe here. Bartain, another one who's having a pretty solid run here. He's up 2 spots in this race, just hanging on to P11 as it's sketchy. And Holko,
I've given him the commentator's curse again.
Oh no, Dave is going to be paying the price for that one. Now Holko can't do anything.
Oh, what a place to sit. Oh,
well, he's gotten lucky there. He managed to get the car off the racetrack and out of harm's way. He was going to be more in harm's way, sitting there for the whole field to go by.
Looks like the car's damaged too.
Yeah.
So straight in the pit lane. He'll be okay. Pit lane, he can do a pit stop. He'll get an instant repair. He's lost a bit of time. But,
I want to see the back end of this crash here because he didn't get damage when he spun. I think he just pinched the front end and may have caught the right rear, but he got hit right there. That's what did the damage to the car. So who was the guy that hit it? The Simrigs entry that goes spinning off on the exit of Stowe there. That would have done some damage to that car as well. And if he's missed the pit entry, that car is going to be limping around the track as Ben Holko on screen parked up in the pit lane.
Car's in the air. He's doing a tyre change as well. Fill the car with fuel, do a repair, and he'll be back out there. What I will say is that Ben, in the middle of all that, kept a very, very cool head, didn't rush out of the way, sat there, let people go either side until there's a bit of clear track and he could get out of trouble. So that was a really nice piece of cool, calm and collected incident recovery there from Ben. Mate, I am so sorry to do that to you as a commentator. So
all too often you see someone throw the toys out the cop the second they've lost control of their car, and they'll either roll back across the racetrack or pin the throttle because, let's face it, we're in iRacing with very little ramifications for your actions. As Scott Bartain looking now to the inside of is it Ireland or Margette's?
It's Chris Ireland, I think it is.
Yeah, Ireland up the inside of Bartain, so that's what that was. So Chris Ireland on the move now, up to 11th. Bartain has a little peekaboo up the inside, heading into Club. He's going to go back to Jacob Mayberry here, fighting his way through. He's running right behind Odin.
That's the second one of the liveries.
There you go, Jacob Mayberry.
So now they're running nose to tail, the 2 team boys.
Jacob Mayberry.
Mayberry and Konitska.
Right there as well. They're finding it out, the teammates, and Mayberry's trying to put the pressure on the back of Bowden here, who's giving him plenty of room through Village, and now has the inside line coming out of the loop here. Mayberry trying to get on the power, slots back in behind the aero wash, and it's going to have an opportunity down the Wellington Straight here. You see Bowden immediately covers the inside line. Mayberry having to look the hard way under brakes down at Brooklands, trying to go too wide to a very fast part of the racetrack is not going to work here for Jacob. He's going to try and play the game. He's going to pick that outside line now. Hope that he's
Try and get a faster exit.
Bowden down to the inside of the corner, but I don't think it's going to work out here for Jacob as Rob Bowden has bolted off the exit of Luffield and Woodcote. And that keeps him in that spot, holding on to P15 on the racetrack. What that has done is that's released Shane Russell ahead of them. It was only a moment ago we saw Shane Russell was right with that pack. You see him here running under the DFR logo. And Shane, who I recall had a mad profile picture a while ago in F3A, he was an absolute rock star with the hair and the face and the hand signal and everything. Now he's gone to the docile, hanging out in my sports car profile pic through the sim entrance. It's Apex Sim Racing is what I was looking for to get your profile information available to the broadcasters. As Tim Delisle still leads the way here. 2.3 seconds clear of Woods now. Delisle is really on a mission here.
Yeah, he certainly put some time on Damon Wood. So, and we didn't see this pace from Tim in the sprint race. So what's he found between the sessions? He's found something that's given him a little bit extra pace here. Then again, Damon may be just conserving tyres and planning to do a pit stop and not take any, whereas Tim's using them up and going to do a tyre stop. And tyre will take you time, it will cost you time in the pit lane when you change tyres.
Well, I was going to ask that question next because I know from the F3A Championship we've done in years gone by, taking tyres is not worth the time it takes to sit in the pit lane waiting for them. But I do know the tyre deck is a lot higher with these cars, so I would imagine there could be a benefit to taking fresh tyres later in the race, especially if you're pushing the car really hard.
We've seen it at previous rounds, certainly. Not everyone takes tyres, but some people do. And the thing is, it's not too bad to get them up to temperature. It takes about a lap, but the gain you get from new tyres over the old tyres...
there's the Shane Russell,
fantastic.
I know.
There we go.
It's the Shane Russell we were looking for. The Rockstar on the drums as well. Thank you to Luke for finding and seeking that one out here, giving Shane his moments. As Tim Delisle, he continues to eke out the gap, and then I'm going to start to fall into line with what you were saying there, Dave. I think Woods is sitting back and trying to nurse the tyres, maybe not quite believing that the advantage is there. It's not a very hot day, particularly in this part of England. We're only looking at 25 degrees crowd temperature and just under 20 degrees air temperature, as you can see from the graphic that Luke conveniently brings up at 9:30 in the morning here from Silverstone. So it's not super hot. You won't feel the tyres melting and sliding around too much underneath you. If you can keep the rubber in check and maybe not push the car as hard, you might have a harder task towards the end of the race, but you'll save yourself all that time that is wasted in the pit lane having to change out the rubbers.
The left front here go through so much trauma, though. The left-hand front, like where they're coming up now, they go through this left-hander, but then you've got a right-hander. It's a double right-hander followed by another right-hander, and then a short straight to the highest speed right-hander on the circuit. So you've got 3, 4 corners in a row that just overload that left-hand front tyre, and that's where it just burns it up and tears it to pieces. And we saw that happening on Sunday as well in the Grand Prix. So here, full noise. This is a flat-out corner. They don't lift for this corner, and it just loads that left-hand front tyre seriously. So it's mainly the left-hand front, but you don't have to change all 4 tyres. But it doesn't. I don't think it takes any less to change one than it does to change 4. So you might as well have 4.
Might as well chuck them all on here as we watch this great battle with Julian Dunn and Daniel Edmonds right now. Julian goes for the move up the hanger straight, used one of his DRS activations, I'm sure, and gets the inside line heading into Stowe and grabs that spot. We saw Julian having to lift to avoid a crash at Cops a moment ago when he was fighting it out with Edmonds. He was just on that outside line and maybe didn't want to be out where Angels fear to tread. As we go back to Nick Bradford and Scott Bartain having their battle. That's for 12th and 13th on the racetrack on the way down towards Club. As we see this now, Will Ryan, another one of those Pace Syndicate SWM entries, grabs another spot up at Stowe. Will up to 22nd on the racetrack now as his opponent immediately peels into pits. That's Phil Vella.
That's Vella straight into the pits. And Phil's, he's 20th place or 24th place at the moment. He hasn't come back through the field like I thought Phil would have. So I think Phil may be suffering from a lack of track time prior to the event. He's a pretty busy boy, and I know he has limited time available, so I'm guessing that might have hurt his pace. He just sometimes isn't able to really get into the car and do the testing prior. We see Scott Bartain there on screen now.
Yes, he is. He's getting to work here. Love the goatee as well. You see, he's one of the leaners. So Bartain, one of those drivers who leans into the wheel and holds the car in the corner. Is going to see us. Give us a wave a little bit there. Thank you, Scott. Perfectly on time for the Virtual Motorsport Mentor Esports team. There's, what is there, 3 of them hanging out in their room at the moment. Well, 2 of them. It's one of them's our Race Stars TV camera, who's watching on from this vantage point here as Bartain holds on to 12th spot on the road, getting to work, and you can see him working the wheel through Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel onto the hanger straight there. Take a moment to breathe and just gain some composure, click it up through the gears, and then plan your attack up at this very fast entry into Stowe Corner. It feels like such a long corner in these cars as well, and you can really feel when the tyres are starting to give up because the car can move around so much, especially, as you said earlier, Dave, with that left front punishment. What it sees here at Silverstone, the car will start to push ridiculous amounts through the middle of that corner, and it prolongs how quickly you can get onto the throttle if you're not really thinking about how you place the car on the way into the corner to set up your exit nicely.
Yeah, so Scott's there sporting a new livery by the looks of it too. That's why I wasn't recognising him, because he's got a new black livery on, so that's something new. Noticing also Chris Ireland up 9 spots up into 11, so Chris is threatening that top 10 as well. He's a good run from the back, from low down on the grid, with a poor finish in the sprint. So he's trying to make amends here in the feature and doing a really good job of it, up 9 spots. And Nick Bradford up 5. And back in 18th place and off the back of the grid, Sam Mort, he's up 15 spots at the moment. So he's having a really, really good run.
He is. We were on board with him a moment ago, running into Village and the loop, and he almost found himself firing into the rear end of Jason Serg, who luckily he avoided him and stayed pointed the right direction as we catch up again with Damon Woods, who looks like he's starting to fall under pressure here from Josh Stewart. They've lost even more time. They're now 3 seconds off the leader of Tim Delisle. So these two either having a serious pace issue in the feature race, or they're playing a very different strategy right now. I was going to make a special mention because we talked about it earlier. Julian Dunn now up 12 spots. He's just a little bit out from this shot right now. He's up into P5.
That's it's not a bad drive from back down the field. And we see here Tim cruising along. He looks very in control. I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to put I don't want to put anything on him, but he's looking comfortable out front.
Well, he just pumped out a purple lap, actually, a 32.8 a moment ago, and he managed to pull out 0.6 of a second on the most recent lap alone over Damon Woods, and the gap goes out to 3.3 seconds now. So as the fuel load comes off, Delisle is still finding more speed out of this car. There you can see the gap as it jumped significantly on lap 11 of this race out to over 3 seconds. It's now over 3.3 seconds, the gap between them, as you see Woods appearing into shot down the old main straight there. So Tim is just finding another gear as he continues to burn off this fuel load as we approach halfway. We're not quite there yet. A 50-minute race, and we just clicked over 30 minutes to go here in this feature race. We're going to start to see the pit stops shaking out soon, and that'll really paint the picture and tell the story of who has been using tyres and who is playing a longer game.
I've got to say, I love Josh Stewart's rear wing with the big Stewart on it. I don't have to think who's driving the car. I just look at it and he tells me. It's fantastic. They should all have that on the rear wing. Look at that.
Yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
A beautiful looking car too, with the Downforce Racing livery and that.
There's a few of them with their name on the rear wing. It certainly makes it easy for us commentators. I think I'm going to slip them a few bucks if they do it.
Get him to jump in the iRacing livery editor. There's another one here is Nick Bradford, another of the Downforce Racing cars, up the inside at Stowe and gets the job done. He's now up to 12th again, fighting still with Bartain, who's not giving up on that battle. We see Scott right behind as they make their way down towards Club and at the chicane. And we can see the perspective here from on board with Bartain. So we're looking at one who's further behind and one who's in front as we ride on board from two perspectives now, with Scott trying to fight his way out of the lucky number 13 spot through Albion Farm, tucking it back across to the left-hand side, hard on the brakes, down a couple of clicks into Village, and you cut off the exit of the corner here to set yourself up for a longer and more sweeping run through the loop. He's got a much better exit here. He's actually going to show a nose through the second part of Aintree. And now will he get the advantage and try and make the move happen as Bradford goes defensive down towards Brooklands. And Bartain can't do anything about it here. He just has to wait for his moment and tuck back in behind. See the difference in racing lines and see how much room Bartain is going to try and make up on the exit of this corner. Trying to set up the exit, you try to pinch the apex off and almost diamond off the corner. A, it should save some tyre life, and B, you get a better run.
Ooh, that's that's not looking very happy, is it?
No, definitely not.
That's a face only a mother could love.
Let's see what happens to bring that unstuck here for Jason as he comes down through Brooklands, I believe, and just
really damaged in front of this car. So obviously somebody hit him, I think.
Yeah, he's spun it by himself.
He's moved. Well. He's moved. That's like we were saying before. Sit still, sit still, sit still until there's no one around. But he's moved and got clobbered.
That was Mort and Marcus Knitska, I think, that collected the two cars behind. So it's going to be unfortunate for them. We see.
So you watch, and he moves. He drives right into him.
And was that Knitska who got cleaned up? But Knitska's still showing as running on the racetrack.
Might have been Maybury. Was it Maybury? Here's another one, Drew Collins. And now he hasn't. He normally has his name on the rear wing, but the whole lot's missing.
There's a flurry of cars in the pit lane here. All showing, or they've all gone red on my timing system, so I'm wondering what's going on here.
Yeah.
A ton of cars.
I've got the whole front of the field gone red.
Yeah, as we watch this from Tim Delisle here. What's happened?
They're all back They'll all come back to colour.
It was an us problem. That's okay. I thought we may have gone under safety car for a moment. We don't quite get audio to see some of that as we see the incident under investigation that we just saw from Jason Sieg and Sam Mort. Well, I think that's going to be pretty cut and dry here. Jason moving the car into the path of oncoming vehicles is a pretty simple thing to see as we watch from the sideline, seeing Josh Stewart, the leading downforce racing entry. These three are just stuck together. They can't get away from each other, but no one's really making any moves in this first half of the race.
Josh just sat there on Damon's tail and hasn't moved for the whole race. I don't think he's really threatened him. He's just sitting there, sitting in the tow, probably saving a little bit of fuel in that tow as well, and just cruising.
And Sam Mort just gets a tag.
Yeah.
And then I'd love to see the onboard from Marcus Knitska. There he is.
Well, a little late, but yeah.
So it's not Knitska.
It's Jacob Maybury.
It's the other of the same livery car.
I want to be in Maybury's not. Here we go. We're on board with Maybury now. So he's come around
the pod as well.
Ooh, and he's gone, I'll drive through that hole. And as he drove through the hole closed. So I think, well, there we go. Jason Sieg's just copped a drive-through penalty for an unsafe re-entry. So once he's stopped there, he moving into the path of Jacob Maybury, and he's copped a penalty for that.
That's an unfortunate one there. Look at that. So majestic, soaring through the air with an S5000. You even get an opportunity to see the
aero
floor work underneath the car. That was a big crash there for Maybury. He's starting to rapidly dismantle the car. There's his teammate, Marcus Knitska, trying to find his way around.
Just missed him.
Unbelievable. Good drive from Marcus because he's off the road. He's taken the rallycross line now. And
he's kept it off the fence.
In front of the crowd on the exit of Luffield there. It's doing his bit for the fans.
Boy, that was a bit of a moment for the team, wasn't it? They thought they were going to have a big damage bill, that one.
Well, it's unfortunate for Maybury because it wasn't his fault entirely, and it's ruined what could have been a good night in the sim here. As here we go, Josh Stewart from third place on the racetrack, diving into the pits, as is Olsen as well.
He's nearly lost it in the pit lane.
Almost spat it into the fence, trying to get it on the pit limiter. Your leader, Tim Delisle, is in the pits as well, as Woods will assume the race lead here. So Tim is now going to go down the order. He was your race leader before taking the pit. As he comes to a stop, gets it up in the air. There's those wheels spinning when the car's stationary again. gets his refuel, and I don't think he took tyres, which is interesting considering.
Well, if the car was up in the air, he took tyres.
Okay, there you go.
Because it only goes up on the jacks if you're changing tyres. If you just take fuel, it doesn't go up on the jacks.
Okay, I thought the tyres had to come off the car for it to take tyres, but that stands me corrected. So Delisle takes tyres, pitting just after the halfway point of the race. It'd be interesting to see now what Woods does to counter that. As we were thinking,
and let's watch Woods' lap times now and whether he lifts the pace during that. While Tim's having a warm-up period on the tyres and the new tyres, trying to get them into temperature, will be a little bit slow. So now I'm expecting you'll see Woods really put in some quick laps and try and negate that gap.
Well, last time out, Woods' best sectors, his first and second sector, 11.4 and a 19.5. This time around, 11.5 and a 19.6 for Woods. So he's not too far off his best laps so far in the race as he comes through Stowe and makes his way down. It'll be interesting to see when he elects to go for that pit lane as he chooses to bypass the pit this time around. And we're looking for a lap time in the midst of a low 143. Tim Delisle's lapped in the 142.8 of previous as Damon Woods comes across the line. 42.9. It's his best lap of the race there for Damon Woods. So he's now going for it to try and open up the gap and see if he can get the overcut in the second half of the race.
You see the last lap 15 in a 142.8 as well. So he's dropped his pace a couple of tenths a lap. While Tim, I'm expecting, I don't know what Tim's pace is at the moment, but I'm expecting him to be a little bit slower because he's on fresh tyres and he's got to get them up to temperature.
Yeah, that'll be the telltale there. He's sitting about 17.7 seconds behind here for Tim Delisle. So he lost a total of... what would have been, he had about a 3.5 second lead, so it's about a 21 second pit lane transit. Should have known that because we watched the race on Sunday night from the Grand Prix.
His last lap time was a 2:05.9, so that says to me in total time loss about 21 seconds in the pit lane. That's not just the pit lane, but that's the rejoin as well.
So we'll see here, not counting as well how slow his pit lap in was, depending on how long he spent coming into the pit lane as we go back on board. We're watching Scott Bartain, but we're watching Damien Cairns and on board with Damien Cairns as well, the accelerated sim racing entry, down there in 16th position, just with the eyes looking forward under the back of Miguel Crespo, who had a fantastic run in the sprint race, drove himself up inside the top 10 of the starting grid here for the feature, and has very nicely held his own. Crespo in 15th right now, Cairns in 16th, Scott Bartain 17th. As they find it out for the remaining placings with a little over 20 minutes to go in this race, keeping an eye on the lap speed. And I want to see what the next lap is here from Tim Delisle, see whether he gets the tyres fired up. I can look at the sectors and I can tell you that the sector times, Delisle is almost identical to Woods to sector 1 last time.
Well, Tim's just done a 144.2 to Damon Woods doing a 142.9. So wow. That's 1.3 seconds quicker that lap Woods was over Tim Delisle.
And the gap now opens up to almost 19 seconds between the two of them. Although Tim now laps pretty much identical on the first sector and quicker on the second sector. So now Delisle starting to get the car up to speed with a fresh set of tyres. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do with lap speed, because realistically he still has the advantage. Woods would need to have something like a 20 to 21 second gap over the top of Tim Delisle to have a chance at holding on to the lead here. There you can see the gap in the bottom right of your screen. You can see the pace difference between Woods and Delisle. They're the two we're looking at, effectively race leader and second place on the road, although reversed from how we're talking about them right now. Woods holds the lead, the door eSports entry, as he makes his way up towards Stowe.
A couple of more things that are affecting this too is that Damon Woods will have less fuel on board because he hasn't refueled, so he'll be very low in the tank, making the car quite light. Tim Delisle's just refueled, so he'll be a fair bit heavier as well. So that's going to make a difference as well in lap speed. So I think you're going to see, Damon said to us before the race, he's going to run it till it's dry. He's going to run it really, really low on fuel and run really, really fast on light tanks. So that's what his strategy is, and we're seeing that in play right now.
Well, there was the situation sometimes within iRacing, tyre deck is almost negated by the fuel burn on the car, and we've seen it a few times depending on certain different Formula and open wheel categories that the pace degradation is actually negative. You actually get so much quicker when you're running it on ultralight fuel. The tyres can even be almost an hour old, and you can be setting some really crazy laps when you're burning the fuel right off. And Damon Woods demonstrating that at the moment, 143.2, although Tim Delisle just did manage a 143.1 with a heavy fuel load on fresh tyres. So there's the difference between the two of them at the moment, and the gap sits at just on 19 seconds. It just ticks up at the top of the battle marker. You can see in the bottom right of your screen, you can see it's constantly changing and varying by a hundredth or so all the time as Woods makes his way through Maggots and Beckett's, then out of Chapel and onto the Hangar Straight. I wonder how much further he can go on fuel in this race.
I also think Julian Dunn's already pitted, Chris, and he's completed his pit stop. He's 32 seconds off the lead in 7th place, and the two guys directly in front of him haven't been into the pit lane yet. So I think you're going to see Tim's going to come into play, and I think he's going to pop out about 4th or 5th place after all the pit stops are completed.
Yeah, it'd be a good run there for Julian, as we can see the stint length on the bottom right graphic of your screen. Woods still running on here. It's 17 minutes to go. He has to pit eventually, but at the moment, holding solid out front. Yusuf still yet to pit as well. Delisle, the leaders of the guys who had to pit. And we can see down there that Julian Dunn pitted a few laps ago. He pitted on lap 13 and has spent the last 5 laps getting back on track. And he's up 10 spots from where he started, despite even having to come in a little bit earlier in the run and pit in this race.
Yeah, so Julian was one of the first in the pit, so one of the early stoppers. So interesting, the difference there. We have the light car on old tyres versus the heavy car on new tyres. And very interesting in that, you can see they're lapping within hundredths of each other. So this lap round,
responding to that pace as well.
He's taken 2 tenths.
42.7, as Julian Dunn not long ago actually set the fastest lap of the race. He set a 42.6 quickest lap of the race. So Julian doesn't have a pace problem. He's just got a track position problem that he kind of did make for himself by finding the back of Caleb Hides in the sprint race. And I know he's going to hate on me for saying that, but that is a reality for Julian's night.
And it is almost like one big race in 2 parts. That sprint race sets up your main event, so you can't make a mess in it. And he's made a few mistakes in the sprint race, and he's kicked himself for it every time, and he's had a bit of bad luck as well. So there's a long way to go in this series. We're at round 4. It's a 10-round series. So there's plenty of time for all sorts to happen from here on in.
There is, as well as Wayne Burke. I don't think Wayne is in the championship tonight, is he? So Julian not necessarily under threat for his... I think
Wayne's away with international or something with business. I can't remember exactly, but he'll be back, not next round, but I think the one after.
So that'll see Greg Olsen very likely assume 3rd in the championship standings heading into the 5th round for the Motorsport Australia official S5000 eSports series, thanks to Racecraft Simulations and driven by FRG. And Julian should be able to consolidate his 3rd position in the championship so far, even despite the challenges he's faced tonight, as we get a bit more of Shane Russell, the rock star, in the Downforce Sim Racing entry, or DFR team. He's down there in 16th position, just hassling the back of the FRG veteran Rob Bowden, who's in 15th.
Yeah, Reece Margetts has just squeezed himself into the top 10 there. He's sitting in 10th place and chasing down Paul Rogers in 9th, and then Daniel Harris just in front of that. So those 3 guys have had a good run tonight there. All 3 of them inside that top 10. Good to see some new names moving their way up into the front of this series.
Well, Chris Ireland at the moment showing 15 spots up. He is yet to pit, I'm going to hazard a guess and say. Yes, hasn't pitted yet for Chris Ireland. So Daniel Harris, Paul Rogers in 9th there. I was looking for him. Also hasn't yet pitted. So we've still got a couple of guys out of position here as Damon Woods goes to the pit lane. So
Interesting.
into pit lane here. This is going to tell the story of where he's going to come out on the racetrack. You can see he's still traversing the pit lane at the moment.
Let's watch Damon here. See if the car goes into the air. Does he take tyres as well? Or does he just take fuel? I've got a feeling he's just going to take fuel. No, he's up in the air. He's taking tyres as well.
So that's going to cost him dearly, although it's
no.
a quick stop.
Maybe he didn't take tyres.
Tim Delisle, here he comes through the first corner. And where is Woods? 0.6 of a second between them. This is a battle starting to come to life now. So Woods seemingly not taking tyres, or got it done at least.
There's no way they changed the tyres that quick. This isn't F1.
That was a 2 seconds up in the air for Damon Woods. So although it did come up, which ticked the box from your prerequisite.
Maybe he only took one tyre. Maybe it's quicker for one tyre. I don't know those things, Chris. But it's something we should ask Damon about after the race if he makes it to the podium. And did he just take one tyre? Did he take all four? And is it quicker to take one tyre than taking four? And if so, maybe he just took a outside left front, or maybe he just took a left-hand side, because you don't have to change all four tyres.
You don't have
somebody limping on the outside there.
Whatever he did was a lot quicker there for Damon, and that has given him the race lead. So Tim Delisle, who put in all that monumental amount of work in the first half of the race, now finds himself looking at the back of Damon Woods' door eSports entry, thinking, what have I done wrong? What can I do now to make this happen? Because he's back there in second from Greg Olsen in third. Ireland still showing in fourth, but we know he's out of position as yet to pit. And Ireland is pretty much the last car on the racetrack who's yet to pit here for Chris Ireland.
Another thing with Damon's stop would be, because he's later in the race, he's going to take on less fuel to get himself to the finish, because there's only, what have we got, 11 minutes to go. So he's going to take on less fuel than they had to earlier. I think you'll find, it'll be marginally less, because the other guys will have, used less in the first place. But he will be running the car later for that period between their stop and his stop, which when the car's later, it'll use the tyres less, and then when he pits, he'll take a little bit less fuel on. So all those things will have contributed to that quick pit stop. Yeah, watching Phil Bella here at the moment. Phil's been trying to charge his way back through the field. He's still an 18th there. He won't be happy with that tonight, but mate, if he can have a good clean run to the finish, I think he'll be quite happy to get away with that for now.
He'll be up there at least, as we see Chris Ireland takes his pit stop finally and rejoins on track. In fact, Chris still showing in seventh after that exchange. So it's been a great run here for Chris Ireland, who we saw getting caught up in the sprint race. He's up to seventh. He's taken his fuel stop now, and he finds himself smack bang right in front of Reece Margetts, who's right behind him on the racetrack here. So it's been a good run there for Chris, who is up to P4, P5 before the stop, with 10 minutes 30 left on the clock here. It's going to be interesting to see whether Tim Delisle really has anything to challenge. When you were talking about taking less fuel, it's only a marginal amount of fuel that would be different between the two of them.
Yes.
But that's purely because it's so much harder to estimate how much fuel you really need to get the race done when you pit earlier on. When you pit later in the race, you have a bit more of an idea, so you can see what the difference is there. As we look at that, I believe we're being told the static times, and you can see them on the left-hand side of your screen. 6.3 versus 8.0 between Woods and Delisle. So that was the difference.
Wow, that's one.
And that was their pit transit time. You can see 35.8 and 37.5. That was their pit transit time between Woods and Delisle there. So that tells the story of how much quicker Woods was in the pit lane that handed him the race lead.
I think unfortunately Daniel Harris has had he's lost internet connection, and he's out of the race, which is a little bit like in the real world having an engine failure, isn't it, Chris? It does happen. You don't know about it. It happens. You just got to say, well, those things happen. But unfortunate for Daniel tonight.
We're seeing a replay here for Jacob Mayberry, who got caught up a little bit earlier on, and a big lose into Brooklands.
He will have been sitting there hoping for everything that it pulled up before he found that barrier.
So unfortunate there for Jacob. as we watch here with Paul Rogers going through cops and just having a bit
another
of
one.
moment. And we get the slow-mo on it. There's Luke earning his dollars tonight. There's the slow-mo of an S5000.
And he's got everything locked going, stop, please stop, please stop. And now he's got 4 beautiful, great big flat spots on the tyre, I expect.
Yeah, start feeling like he's driving on 50-cent pieces getting around the racetrack here at Silverstone with 8 minutes and 30 to go. Woods just catching a bit of curb there at the chicane. That can really unsettle your run through the final couple of corners, and that brings Delisle. You can see that margin, the gap coming down and down and down. In fact, Delisle's going to bring the gap down to less than 0.8 of a second as they come across the line. And you can see further back to Olsen, the margin showing 10 seconds. There we can see the gap now, 8.6 of a second between Woods and Delisle. It's opened it up again to just over 1.2 as they come onto the Wellington Straight.
It's a bit of a bit like the Grand Prix, where the different cars seem to be quicker in different parts of the circuit. It seems these guys have got the same thing, that Tim's faster in parts of the circuit than compared to Dave, and that may be the difference in the setup of the cars. One running a little bit more downforce than the otother, maybe. We are also noticing a few people stepping up, losing it and losing the back end at this point in the race. We've seen that as well before, because once you pass this halfway point and around the pit stop, you're seeing the guys who haven't taken tyres, the tyres get lose a little bit of grip, the car starts to get a bit loose in the back end, and as well as that, the guys are struggling to keep their concentration a bit, and we've seen a lot of mistakes happen at this sort of point in the race. So there we go again, as I say it, we see another one. That's Bailey Evans around sideways after a little touch there. But
Bailey, once again, getting caught up in an incident. He's one of those guys who is crazy fast, but somehow finds every incident he can when he gets on track.
But I will say, it's not. If you're having that many incidents, I don't mean to be rude to Bailey, but if you're having that many incidents, you're something of the factor, because nobody's got that much bad luck that everything always happens to them and it's everybody else's fault. It can't be. It always takes 2 to tango. So
there forward with Marcus Konitska as Bailey turned in to the left-hander. Marcus had his nose on the inside, and unfortunately the two come together. Just jumping in the YouTube chat, it was Harris confirming that his internet connection had dropped out. So that's going to be heartbreaking for all the work he put in throughout the course of the night, because it's not just jumping in for a race, but it's the practice session, it's the time you put in to dialing in the setup and making sure everything is as good as it can be ahead of race time, to have it all undone by an internet connection. That said, I was stressing on my internet connection about an hour and a half ago, because it was not happy before I was firing up to try and join the commentary tonight.
I just noticed there on screen, Luke, following Jansen there, and that's a new livery on his car for tonight. He's been pure white every race. Now we're looking at this. He's got a sparkling new geometric metallic blue livery on, so obviously he's been doing a bit of hard work during the week with the paint job.
Good little utilization of the spec maps as well in iRacing. It's a great way to waste thousands of hours playing with spec maps and liveries, if you're so inclined to do that, as well as we follow along with Jansen as well. He's even got the chrome rims on, currently running 21st on the racetrack and hanging out there. Having a pretty decent run. He's up one spot from where he started. He's kept his nose clean and consolidated that, which is more than what can be said for some drivers in this field, as we've seen a fair bit of attrition so far here. As Chris Ireland on screen, running with his teammate Reese Margetts, 7th and 8th. A good night at the races for the Simrigs DPR boys, holding on to this one.
It's so cool when you see them running in formation with the same liveries.
Yeah, it's good to see as well that Margetts has consolidated and held on to that spot. He's only up 2 spots from where he started, whereas Ireland up 13 spots, as we get a look at Ben Holko, who is running once again here, as we get the onboard as well for Damien Cairns once more. 22nd and 23rd on the racetrack with a little over 4 minutes left to go.
Now, I'm just having a look at the incident points as well, because there's 17 incidents and you get a drive-through. So I can see there that Jason Siegs copped a drive-through penalty for exceeding incident points. So is Nick Bottrell, Trent Gosley, Luke Hayden, Drew Collins, Jacob Mabry. They've all exceeded the incident limit. So you get up to 17 incidents, which is off tracks, 17 off tracks effectively, or connections. You get a 1x or a 2x connection for contact with another vehicle. And once you get to 17, you get a drive through. And I think at 25, you are actually disqualified from the race, which unfortunately is what's happened to Luke Hayden. He's actually exceeded the incident count. He's got 25 incidents to his name, and he's been black flagged. And iRacing do that.
And I think Jacob Mabry could attribute 4 of those incident points to the crash that he had at Luffield, which was Sieg that lost it. Damon still holding on to the race lead here. He's just picking up a little bit of time. Delisle trying to make some inroads. The gap to 9/10 of a second now between the two of them. You can see on the battle chart in the bottom right, the lap 25 was a big lap for Woods. He put in a 1:43.3 and pulled the gap out. And now they're both dipping into the 1:42.9s, and Delisle doing his utmost best to stay in touch. Delisle was actually marginally quicker, so the gap shows whether Delisle was quicker or not. But that lap 25, they both lost a bit of time. They were both in the 1:43s, and Delisle losing a ton of time. Damon's looking pretty good for this, with 2.5 minutes left to go. He's played a master stroke in the pit strategy. We'll have to find out about it at the end of the race. We haven't spoken much about Greg Olsen, who's back there in third. He's up 1 spot after starting on the 4th spot of the grid, the positive sim racing entry. Just having one of those quiet nights at the races where he might not have the pace to win outright, but he's had a brilliant run to hold on to third.
Looking back at these incident points too, just as a matter of interest, Damon Wood sitting there on 7 incident points. Julian Dunn there on 5, and Tim Delisle on 9. That shows the class. Not only are they fast, but they're not making mistakes. They're not dropping a wheel in the grass. They're not having a touch with another car. So that's, just shows you how good they really are at the front there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when you do see them come unstuck there, but it's good to see that they're keeping their noses clean out there.
And we should give a call out there again to Andre Yusuf. Finished second last week with a little bit of a lucky pit strategy, I think it was, or benefit from the safety car and a couple of things. But drove really well to get himself on the podium. And there he is in 5th place again. He's really closing on that front gap. So Andre, every week he's a little bit quicker and a little bit closer. So a very impressive drive again from Andre this week.
He's had a good run of it as well. He's rocking the Racecraft livery, which ticks a box for the sponsor as well. He's holding on to P5. He's lost a bit of lap speed towards the end of this race, though. He's lapping in the 144s. Last time around was a 144.21, and he's only got the best of a 142.4. So he's doing a great job of overall race consistency.
Well, he's got Julian Dunn 8 seconds in front of him, and Edmonds 8 seconds behind him. So it's having a bit of a lonely drive. So there's not much point in driving the wheels off it. You just want to consolidate, keep it neat, not make any mistakes, and really cruise it home.
One man who is driving the wheels off it, as we believe we are already stuck into the final lap and coming up to the final couple of corners. Damon Woods coming into the Stowe for the final time here is going to tick the box in a big way tonight, making his way down towards the chicane to take out the feature race with a master stroke in the pit strategy as he comes out of club for the final time, and a run to the finish. A brilliant drive sees him take home P1 tonight for round 4 in the feature race for the Motorsports Australia official S5000 eSports series. We have Tim Delisle home in second. Greg Olsen with a clean and consistent drive to come home on the podium tonight in third. And Julian Dunn has this up 13 spots in the feature race to go P4. And the man who we were just speaking about with the Racecraft livery for Pursuit Sim Racing, Andre Yusuf, another clean night at the races for him, home in P5. And Daniel Edmonds, the simrigs.com DPR entry for P6 across the line. His teammates, Reese Margetts, who's just got his nose in front. Margetts is going to steal P7 from his teammate. And Chris Island up 12 spots coming home across the line in P8. Nick Bradford P9, Rob Bowden P10, and Josh Stewart just missing out there to go P11.
Something happened to Josh Stewart, because Josh Stewart was up there in the top 3, Chris, for ages, and there he's come across the line outside of the top 10. So I don't know what quite happened to Josh there during the race, but we've missed that. But obviously some issue during that second part of the race there for Josh Stewart.
Yeah, we missed it at some point, but that does see him come home just outside the top 10, P11 for Josh. And Steve Jansen gets his finish. And how's the class of Damon Woods? Not only takes out the win, but knocks in the fastest lap of the race on the final lap as well. A 1:42.610 must have had the rear wing activated for the entire course of all the straights at the end there.
He did say he was going to save up those DRS pushes and use them all on the last lap. So it looks like that's exactly what he's done, Chris.
He's done that in fine form to set the fastest lap of the race, on his way to taking the feature race win here for Damon Woods. Your championship leader continues his strong form here at the 4th round of the championship from Silverstone in these S5000 cars, thanks to Racecraft simulations and driven by FRG. I'm just getting information on what actually did happen for Josh Stewart.
They're saying Josh Stewart's pit stop was 1:12, so he's obviously had some issues in the pits. He may have had some damage or something or other. I don't know why, but he's stationary for about 48 seconds. So, unfortunately, not sure what happened to him there.
Could have set the refuel to go to max as well, and tyres might not have been very helpful as we check on the full final standings. And of course, results are provisional. Damon Woods taking the win from Tim Delisle in second by 1.28 seconds, and a huge margin back to Greg Olsen coming home in third. And a big drive for Julian Dunn to go 4th with the Altus Esports entry, and Andre Yusuf reigning at your top 5.
Yes, other notable people down there. I'm looking through that list, and I think Will Ryan up 14 spots to 17th place is a pretty good drive there as well.
Pretty solid results throughout that field as we get to see through the order some more.
Here's a replay of Tim Delisle's pit stop, I'm thinking. So,
that's just a shot there, I think.
No, that's Damon Woods. That's Damon Woods' pit stop.
Uber quick. Let's ask the question that's burning right now then. Damon Woods, congratulations on the win. What did you do in that pit stop?
To be honest, I don't know. I did not expect to be anywhere close to Tim after that pit stop, but I must have been quick enough at the end of my fuel tank to somehow close the gap, and then obviously the shorter pit lane here helps a little bit as well.
Well, we noted that you were still a second and a half or 1.7 quicker in your stationary time than Tim was. So I guess if you don't know what you did, we're going to have to go back the order here and check in with Tim.
Well, I have an idea of what happened, but yeah, I still did not expect to come out where I did.
All right, we'll get back to you in a moment. The question burns then for Tim Delisle. Congratulations, second.
Thanks. Doesn't really feel great, but thank you.
Yes. So what's on your mind right now? What happened in that pit stop for you?
Well, the reason Damon leapfrogged me, apart from having awesome pace at the end of his stint, was that I was monitoring the gap and thinking at one stage I had to push like a madman, and I had a half spin at the exit of Stowe. I caught it, but I lost 1.3 seconds there, and then came out about 0.8 behind him after the pit stop. So, I mean, it seemed like he was a little quicker in those last few laps, so he might have got me anyway. But with the tow and the dirty air and all that sort of stuff, I'll never really know. But yeah, it was a great drive by Damon, and he fully earned the win.
Well, congratulations to you anyway. You put on a valiant drive to try and get that one done. Anything from you, Dave, for our second place driver?
No, I was just interested. Did anyone take tyres? Did you take tyres, Tim? Because we're seeing the car go up in the air, and normally that signifies that tyres are being changed, but it doesn't sound like anybody took tyres.
Yeah, I took tyres just because Silverstone, like the temps were pretty cool here, so it wasn't too bad, but it really, smashes the front tyres. So rather than risk driving on those worn tyres at the end of the race, I just took the hit. I guess it'll be a couple of seconds in the pits, but it's better than, losing it at Cops or something and ending your race.
Cool.
That's fair enough. And I guess we'll have to give Damon the opportunity now because we jumped over him pretty quickly just talking about tyres. Congratulations, Damon. You take the win tonight and consolidate your championship lead a little bit further.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like I said, I really did not expect that, but yeah, I'll take it. It's more points gained in the championship, which is lovely, but yeah, it was very close. But yeah, we'll take it.
What was your strategy in the early parts of the race there? Because we saw Tim kind of skipping away by quite a margin. We almost wrote you off for a second. It was only the saving grace. We were thinking whether you might have been angling to save some tyres, but what was going on in the first half of the race before you took the pit stop?
I definitely know that I was on a heavier tank because I was able to go 6 laps longer than they were. So I expect that they were on a lower tank and therefore they had quicker pace at the start of the stint. But once it kind of evened out, I think I was only losing a tenth and a bit a lap. And then, once they changed tyres, I was able to gap, 3-4 tenths a lap. And then, it was enough to close that gap.
Well, good job, mate. Congratulations once again. We'll jump down now. We've spoken to Tim and Dave. I'll hand you over to Greg Olsen.
Well, Greg, that was a good drive, getting yourself up on the podium there. Great showing, and it looks like you had a pretty clean race. Anything stood out during that race for you?
Yeah, thanks. Really, I was just sort of benefiting from a technical glitch with Joshy. I really think Josh Stewart should have been on P3 today, but he got that speeding penalty when he went into the pits, which is really unfortunate. So commiserations to him.
That's what it was.
Yes, unfortunately. As for myself, it was pretty straightforward. I mean, I followed Joshy into the pits after the whole stint, but then talking about tyres, I forgot to take tyres. I fully intended to take them, and I forgot to check them. So I don't know what everyone else did, but it was really tricky managing the thermal deg on these tyres for the entire race. So luckily coming into the pits let them cool off a little bit. So then for me, the rest of the race was really just managing the gap to Julian and making sure I didn't overheat the tyres any like slides or anything like that, because then I think he would have caught me.
So there is quite a bit of time penalty in taking a tyre change?
No, I don't think so. It's just, I guess, the tyres...
Warm-up period.
There is a small warm-up period, not so much at a track like this, because you've got lots of high-speed corners, put a lot of energy into the tyres. So it's, I guess, really, unless you're going to do a really short stop like Damon would have with his long first stint, it's probably worth taking some tyres just to be safe, like Tim said.
Interesting. So there's a bit of strategy out there. And how did you go with your DRS? Do you save that up towards the end, like we're hearing a few of the other guys are doing?
It depends on the race, to be honest, because it was very straightforward. Like in the sprint race, for example, I used a lot because I needed to come back through the field. But in the feature race, because it was such a straightforward first lap, I just filtered in behind Joshy, and I had like about 6 left to play with at the end as well. So I was just using them to try and keep the gap up to Julian.
Yeah, we're seeing a replay there on screen at the moment of Josh coming into the pits, and he's got 2 wheels on the grass and got a bit sideways, and that's where he's just exceeded the speed limit on the entry to the pit lane. So it was a mistake that caused that.
Yeah, I think he... I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but it sounded like he thought he had the speed limiter on, but then it wasn't on, so that's caught him out. Yeah,
yep.
It's really, really a shame.
It is a shame, but and it is harsh, but that's the same rule for everyone, unfortunately. But he'll be back next week to give you a hard time again, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll move on. We'll go to the thank yous, and we'll start with Greg. Who do you have to thank for tonight?
Big thanks to Positive Sim Racing, especially to Tim. I mean, he's done all the hard work, and you can tell he's obviously a lot quicker than me. He's been doing all the practice, all the setup work, so big thank you to him across the whole season, really. I've benefited from all of that. And a big thanks to Downforce Racing as well, and to Josh Stewart. We've been having a good time just sort of collaborating with them and enjoying this league, just with some friendly banter and whatnot. So, yeah, thanks to those guys, and commiserations again to Joshy.
We'll move on then to second place, Tim Delisle. Commiserations and congratulations once again. Who do you have to thank?
Thank you. Yeah, pretty much mirror Greg. PSR Positive Sim Racing, Greg, DFR guys, and commiserations to Josh. Yeah, it's just really terrible way to have a good result ruined. Yeah, Damon, congrats on the win. And last of all, not least, my beautiful fiancée Amy, because we are getting married this Friday. So I'm going to throw that in as my excuse for coming second in this race. Clearly I had more important things on my mind.
You certainly do, mate. Congratulations on the engagement, and best of luck for the wedding.
Thank you.
And there goes your speed.
You get married, you start going slow. Then we'll go to our winner, Damon Woods. Congratulations. Who do you have to thank?
Once again, I'd like to thank eSports, VRS, Recaro, JBL, Tailored Rig, Arima Sportswear, and finally SX Group. And also a big congratulations to Tim on the engagement.
Thanks.
There you go. Well, that is a wrap, gents. Thank you for joining us in the broadcast and putting on a fantastic race. Dave, it's been a great night of racing for S5000s.
Yeah, these things are wonderful. They're fast, they're noisy, and they're a handful, and they're easy to make mistakes in. I think that just shows the class of these guys at the front, that they can drive the thing that hard for that long and keep it that clean. So congrats to all the guys inside the top 10. In fact, congrats to the whole field. Anyone who finished tonight did a great job.
Yeah, it's been a big night of racing here for the official Racecraft S5000 E-Series. For Motorsports Australia and driven by FRG. If you'd like to find out more information how you can get involved in FRG, although the grid is locked for S5000s, we have weekly grids where you can come and join the Australian Formula Ford Championship E-Series. When are we on next for Formula Fords, Dave? I'm starting to get lost in this calendar.
We got 2 weeks away before we go take the Formula Fords to Monza, which will be fun. But next week, we're back to Red Bull Ring with the F4.
That's going to be fantastic as well. The official FIA F4 E-Series going to Red Bull Ring next week. And the next round of the S5000s will be from Spa on August 1. So make sure you stay tuned. Tuesday nights, we're pretty much live on Race Stars TV every Tuesday night for the foreseeable future, Dave.
Yep, every Tuesday night right up until December, I believe.
It's going to be fantastic. Stay tuned and go head on over to FRG, Formula Racing Group, Racecraft Simulations, Race Stars TV, and Motorsports Australia. Check them out on the socials for more information about how you can get involved in all the various fun things and great things on offer as well. We see you next week as we continue on these championships on Race Stars TV.